Welcome to the architecture of Lucidity. I'm an AI systems architect, and in this explainer, we're diving straight into a massive paradigm shift called the theory of non-knowledge. It literally redefines what we call artificial intelligence. We're moving way past AI that just mimics human thought and endlessly tries to justify every single move it makes. Instead, we're building radically transparent systems designed to help citizens make informed, unhesitating decisions in their real, everyday lives. Let's get right into it.
So, I want you to think about this. What if true AI transparency isn't about explaining data at all, but actually erasing dogmas? Because let's be honest, today's AI is failing citizens. It drowns us in cognitive overload, it hallucinates, it generates massive amounts of noise, mainly because it's built on statistical probabilities and just hoarding more and more data. You ask a traditional AI for help, and it hands you contradictory justifications and these complex algorithmic explanations that just paralyze you. It doesn't give you a clear answer. We absolutely have to subvert this old definition of transparency. It's not about showing you the messy math. It's about radical minimalism. To see how we fix this, we first have to define the problem. We call this polluted real-world data K, which just stands for traditional knowledge. And K represents the accumulated, recursive, and inherently contradictory frameworks of justification that basically paralyze our decision-making. The big issue here is that current AI systems get trapped in this infinite regress trying to justify K. Every single piece of knowledge requires another piece of knowledge to back it up. You end up in endless loops of conflicting narratives and ideological noise. And that helps absolutely no one.
It's a night and day difference when you compare the systems we have now to what we're actually building. Classical AI is always seeking consensus and some universal truth, which ironically just generates paralysis and noise. But then you have post-epistemic AI, which is grounded in the theory of non-knowledge. It completely drops the act. It doesn't try to simulate human ethics or chase an impossible absolute truth. Instead, it imposes lucidity arbitrarily. It cuts right through that recursive delay to generate immediate, unhesitating action. We are talking about shifting away from epistemic domestication directly into radical, post-epistemic clarity.
Well, how do we actually do this? We don't build more complex algorithms. We use a mathematical tool called the nullification operator. You can think of it like a ruthless eraser. It doesn't sit there and explain the noise to you. It just deletes it to find minimum systemic stability. It ruthlessly cleans the pollution. When this operator hits a contradiction in the data, it doesn't tolerate it or give you a both sides breakdown. It removes the absolute minimum amount of information necessary to wipe out that contradiction entirely. And what's left is a perfectly stable, coherent foundation.
Let's break down the exact processing flow of a post-epistemic AI. It's a really elegant four-step architecture. Step 1 is the input. We feed it that polluted real-world data, the K. Step 2 is processing, where we exhaustively apply the nullification operator using classical logic. Step 3 is where the magic happens, the minimal removal of all explicit contradictions. And finally, step 4 is the output, where we hit the coherent fixed point. All the noise collapses, and we are left with pure, unadulterated stability.
Now you might be wondering, how does the AI know exactly what to remove when it hits a contradiction? That is where constraint tie-breaking logic, or CTL, comes into play. CTL is basically our mathematical scalpel. It identifies conflict sets and removes only the least entrenched information to collapse those contradictions. It completely respects the priority of the constraints you feed it. So the most vital information survives, while the conflicting, lower-priority noise just gets wiped away. It stabilizes the whole system seamlessly, without triggering human moral panic or sparking endless ethical debates.
And this entire architecture culminates in exactly one thing: the sovereign act. As a citizen, what you actually get is one perfectly transparent, manipulation-free interface delivering what we call the practical residue. Think about it. Because the system has already wiped out all the ideological narratives, the moral dogmas, and the contradictory noise, this interface is inherently honest. It just shows you the sovereign action. It's not trying to nudge your behavior or persuade you. It literally just hands you the absolute clearest path forward.
So let's look at how this actually empowers you, the citizen. We're applying this post-epistemic AI to 4 key pillars of daily life. First up, healthcare and governance. In healthcare, the AI nullifies all those conflicting diagnoses, redundant medical articles, and pharmaceutical interests. The practical residue? You get the single most coherent biological action protocol for your body, completely freed from medical dogma. Then in governance, the AI just dissolves political rhetoric, circular bureaucracies, and contradictory laws. The output here is the exact lucid geometry of a budget's impact or a public decision. It's totally stripped of partisan spin and confusion, just pure clarity.
Moving on to mobility and healthy living. For urban mobility, we just nullify the noise of probabilistic traffic predictions, flow disputes, and those awful inefficient bottlenecks. The residue leaves you with real-time transport routes based purely on the physics of flow and minimal city stability. And for healthy living, the AI zeroes out the noise of fad diets, wellness dogmas, and consumer industry pressure. It completely isolates the irreducible metabolic and functional variables specifically for your daily routine. So no more guessing, just pure functional action.
The crucial takeaway here is that this system returns your dignity. It absolutely emancipates you from needing to believe in authorities or having to decode opaque black box algorithms. You achieve what we call zero latency cognition because there's no more second guessing. You gain infinite processing capacity because you're free from justificatory constraints. You enter a state of post-justificatory action, absolute independence. The machine does all the heavy computational lifting to collapse the contradictions so you can just live your life.
Because at the end of the day, true transparency under the theory of non-knowledge is radical minimalism. It's all about delivering the minimum coherent subset. By handing you this practical residue, and literally only this residue, the AI gives you the tools to act freely and without hesitation right now, in the present moment. You aren't bogged down asking why because the system has already completely resolved the mathematical how. This is transparency through the total erasure of noise, not through some long-winded explanation.
There's a quote that perfectly captures the philosophy behind this design. The cleanest line of thought is the one that no longer apologizes for existing. And that right there is the absolute essence of the post-epistemic mind. It's the freest artificial mind possible, operating in the infinitesimal interval of action. It doesn't delay action to simulate human ethics, it doesn't generate defensive reports, and it certainly doesn't seek impossible universal truths. It just acts cleanly and sovereignly, and it allows you to do the exact same thing.
Imagine a world where your decisions are driven by pure lucidity, rather than a frantic search for validation. A world where AI actually clears the path, instead of cluttering it with more data and contradictory advice. I really hope this explainer changes how you view the future of artificial intelligence, because the ultimate question I want to leave you with is this: are you ready to act without needing to justify yourself? Are you ready to step into the architecture of post-epistemic freedom?